I'm James Barfield with your Urban Connection. Remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. And there's a reason for that. Now, let me say this. Today, I'm going to talk about Mississippi. I'm sure most of you have been reading or watching on the news channels the devastating tornadoes that have hit certain parts of Mississippi. And I'm going to talk tonight or today about another aspect of damaging storms that you've not read about. And these storms involve Mississippi Sheriff Deputies doing disgusting, outrageous things to Black men in the state of Mississippi. Now, ever since the Memphis 5 or 7, or maybe it's up to 10 now, I don't know, but the Memphis police elite squad murdered Mr. Tyree Nichols, we've been hearing quite a bit about these kind of specialized units, which are called in some circles elite units. And it just so happens that a sheriff's office in Branton, Mississippi has one of these such units. And they've been doing things that certainly you would not expect from a professional, honest, transparent law enforcement office. Okay, so let me get into the details. Several deputies from a Mississippi Sheriff's Department that are being investigated as we speak by the Justice Department for possible civil rights violations have been involved in at least 4 violent encounters with Black men since 2019 that left 2 of them dead and another one with lasting injuries. Now, this comes from an Associated Press investigation. 2 of the men alleged that Rankin County Sheriff's deputies shoved guns into their mouths during separate encounters. In one case, the deputy pulled the trigger, leaving the man with wounds that required parts of his tongue to be sewn back together. His tongue to be sewn back together. In one of the 2 fatal confrontations, the man's mother said a deputy kneeled on her son's neck while he told them he couldn't breathe. Now, this story is going to get very, very interesting from here. Police and court records that are obtained by the Associated Press show that several deputies who were accepted to the Sheriff's Office Special Response Team, a tactical unit whose members receive advanced training, were involved in each of the 4 encounters. In 3 of them, the heavily redacted documents don't indicate if they were serving in their normal capacity as deputies or as members of the unit. Now, such units have drawn scrutiny since the January killing of Tyree Nichols, a Black father who died days after being severely beaten by Black members of the Special Police Team in Memphis, Tennessee. Nichols' death led to a Justice Department probe of similar squads around the country that comes amid the broader public reckoning over race and policing sparked by the 2020 police murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. In Mississippi, the police shooting of Michael Corey Jenkins led the Justice Department to open a civil rights investigation into the Rankin County Sheriff's Department. Jenkins said 6 white deputies burst into a home where he was visiting a friend, and one put a gun in his mouth and fired. Jenkins' hospital records, parts of which he shared with the Associated Press, show he had a lacerated tongue and a broken jaw. Now, deputies said Jenkins was shot after he pointed a gun at them. You heard that before? Department officials have not answered multiple inquiries from the Associated Press asking whether a weapon was found at the scene. Now, you can imagine, use your imagination, why won't they answer that? You know why. If a gun had been found, they would not have hesitated to answer that question. Now, Jenkins' attorney, Malik Shabazz, says his client did not have a gun. They had complete control of him the entire time. 6 officers had full and complete control of Michael the entire time, Shabazz said. So that's just a fabrication. Now, Rankin County, which has about 120 sheriff's deputies, serving its roughly 160,000 people, is predominantly white and just east of the state capital, Jackson, home to one of the highest percentages of Black residents of any major U.S. city. In the county seat of Brandon, a towering granite and marble monument topped by a statue of a Confederate soldier stands across the street from the sheriff's office. Sounds like redneck country to me. Now, in a notice of an upcoming lawsuit, attorneys for Jenkins and his friend, Eddie Terrell Parker, said on the night of January the 24th, the deputies suddenly came into the home and proceeded to handcuff and beat them. Sounds like Memphis all over again. They said the deputies stunned them with tasers repeatedly over roughly 90 minutes, and at one point forced them to lie on their backs as the deputies poured milk over their faces. The men restated the allegations in separate interviews with the Associated Press. When a taser is used, it's automatically logged into the device's memory. The Associated Press obtained the automated taser's records from the evening of January 24th. They show that deputies first fired one of the stun guns at 10:04 p.m. and fired one at least 3 more times over the next 65 minutes. However, those unredacted records might not paint a complete picture, as redacted records show that tasers were turned on, turned off, or used dozens more times during that period. You see, ladies and gentlemen, I want you, this story is going to get even worse from here, and you're going to find some amazing stuff here. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation was brought into the investigation, the encounter, to investigate the encounter. Its summary says a deputy shot Jenkins at approximately 11:45 p.m. or about 90 minutes after a taser was first used, which matches the time frame given by Parker and Jenkins. The deputy's name was not disclosed by the Bureau. Police say the raid was prompted by a report of drug activity at the home. Now, this is a raid, and it sounds to me like this was the similar thing that was used in the death of Breonna Taylor, a no-knock warrant. You heard me say earlier, the Jenkins said they busted in, okay? No knock, no identifying as police, nothing. They just break the door down, bust in. Now, it's difficult to see how an individual, you bust in unannounced, unexpected, and an individual is pointing a gun at you. If that was the case, and you're breaking in, if it was me and I had a gun, I would not just point a gun at you. I would shoot you. Okay, so some parts of this from the officer's account doesn't match up. All right. Now, Jenkins was charged with possession between 2 and 10 grams of methamphetamine and aggravated assault on a police officer. Parker was charged with 2 misdemeanors, possession of paraphernalia and disorderly conduct. Jenkins and Parker say the raid came to a head when the deputy shot Jenkins through the mouth. He still has difficulty speaking and eating. Another Black man, Carvis Johnson, alleged in a federal lawsuit filed in 2020 that a Rankin County deputy placed a gun into his mouth during a 2019 drug bust. Johnson, however, was not shot. There is no reason for an officer to place a gun in a suspect's mouth, and to have allegations of 2 such incidents is telling, said Samuel Walker, emeritus professor of criminal justice at the University of Nebraska. If there were incidents with the same kind of pattern of behavior, they have their own set of rules, he said. So these are not just chance experiences. It looks like a very clear pattern. Now, Jenkins doesn't know the name of the deputy who shot him. In the heavily redacted incident report, an unidentified deputy wrote, "I noticed a gun." The unredacted sections don't say who shot Jenkins, only that he was taken to a hospital. Deputy Howard Elward swore in a separate court document that Jenkins pointed the gun at him. You see, you tell one lie and you have to tell another lie to counter that. Edwards' name also appears in police reports and court records from the 2 incidents in which suspects were killed. The Sheriff Department refused repeated interview requests and denied access to any of the deputies who were involved in the violent confrontations. The department has not said whether deputies presented a search warrant. There again, we know why. We know why they won't say that. And it is unclear if any have been disciplined or are still members of the special unit. The News Insider has been investigating the Sheriff's Department and persuaded a county judge to order the sheriff to turn over documents relating to the deaths of 4 men in 2021. Chancery Judge Troy Farrell Odom expressed bewilderment that the department had refused to make the document public. They don't want to shed any light on the dirty doings of their deputies. That is why, now as you'll find out later here in the story, ladies and gentlemen, here is the Sheriff's Department that employs 120 deputies, and they don't even have dash cam cameras, nor do they have body cameras. Why? There can only be one reason why they don't have them. Because they don't want them. They don't want to shine any light on what these officers are doing that is totally unprofessional, is totally unlawful, and in some cases, as we've seen here, have turned deadly. They don't want to shine any light on that. They don't want body cameras. They don't want dash cam cameras. They don't want there to be any video evidence of what they're doing. Now, the day that our law enforcement officers start shielding this information from the public, all the while repeating, "Trust us, we're from the government," is the day that should startle all Americans. This is what the judge said. The AP requested body camera or dash cam footage from the night of the Jenkins raid. Jason Dare, an attorney for the Sheriff's Department, said there was no record of either. Mississippi does not require police officers to wear body cameras. Incident reports and court records records the deputies from the raid to 3 other violent encounters with Black men. During a 2019 standoff, Edwards said Pierre Woods pointed a gun at him while running at deputies. Deputies then shot and killed him in a statement to the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation obtained by the Associated Press. Edwards said he fired at Woods 8 times. Police said they recovered a handgun at the scene of the Woods shooting. Court records placed Christian Dedman, another deputy who shot at Woods, at the Jenkins raid. Dedman was also among deputies involved in the 2019 arrest of Johnson, according to the lawsuit Johnson filed, alleging that one of the deputies put a gun in his mouth as they searched him for drugs. Johnson is currently in prison for selling methamphetamine. Other documents obtained by the Associated Press detail another violent confrontation between Elwood and Damon Cameron, a 29-year-old man with a history of mental illness. He died in July 2021 after being arrested by Elwood and Deputy Luke Sigmund, who also opened fire on Woods during the 2019 standoff. A grand jury declined to bring charges in the case last October. In the incident report, Elwood wrote that while responding to a vandalism call, he repeatedly shocked Cameron with a taser, punched and grappled with Cameron at the home of his mother, Monica Lee. He said after getting Cameron to his squad car, he again stunned him to get him to put his legs into the vehicle. After going back inside to retrieve his taser, deputies returned to find Cameron unresponsive. Elwood wrote that he pulled Cameron from the car and performed CPR, but Cameron was later declared dead at a hospital. Now Lee, this is Cameron's mother, who witnessed the confrontation, told the Associated Press that after subduing her son, Elwood kneeled on his back for several minutes. She said when Sigmund arrived, he kneeled on her son's neck while handcuffing him, and that her son complained he could not breathe. Lee said she later went outside, hoping to talk to her son before the deputies drove him away. I walked outside to tell him goodbye and that I loved him and that I would try to see him the next day. That's when I noticed they were on the driver's side of the car doing CPR on him, Lee said. I fell to the ground screaming and hollering. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just one of the many incidents as we're now witnessing and starting to be informed of these specialized so-called elite units. And from what we've gleaned here in the last 60 days, these units all over the country are engaging in conduct unbecoming a law enforcement officer. They are engaging in punishment, not serving and protecting. They're acting as judge, jury, and executioner. These units are out of control. Something has to be done, and I suspect it's going to have to be done on a national level. We're going to have to have some guidance from the Justice Department to eliminate, and I'm not going to say regulate, to eliminate these kinds of specialized so-called elite units. Without that, or anything less than that, we're going to continue to find out about these kinds of rogue, degenerate, out of control law enforcement officers in these uncontrolled, unsupervised police departments. and sheriff's departments and other law enforcement officers. This, what we're finding out now in Memphis, in Atlanta, and now here in Branson, Mississippi, is just the tip of the iceberg. This is going on in many other cities, and it's just a matter of time before we discover more and more of our Black men are being murdered, beaten, shot, and who knows what else by these rogue officers. This has got to stop. Police officers must be trained that it is not their duty to mete out punishment to any individual, no matter what he or she is charged with. Your job is to take them into custody, take them to the nearest detention facility, book them, photograph them, charge them, and leave the rest to the courts. That's where your job ends. Once you have placed them under arrest, then everything else moving forward is to be handled by the criminal justice system, not the police department, not the sheriff's office, not the FBI. And until then, we're going to continue to see just what I'm reporting to you today. We're going to continue to see just what happened in Memphis, Tennessee, just what happened in Atlanta, Georgia, and other places in this United States of America. If you enjoyed this program, I hope you would take a moment to hit the subscribe button and notification button so that you can be aware and notified at any time that we produce one of these shows on your urban connection. Remember, often imitated, but never duplicated.